Hey guys, Thunder E here, and today we are gaming right on the cover display, that super large cover display of the Galaxy Z Flip 7. And this is an interesting device because Samsung has made some big changes to the device and also a few step backs, I would say. So let's go ahead and game. So the brand new Galaxy Z Flip 7 is interesting because they changed the cover display. As you can see, I am running Call of Duty Mobile on here, and you can play your games on this cover display. It is a brand new 4.1-inch display. It's got a maximum nit brightness of 2600, 120 hertz, by the way, so very fast and smooth. And you can see that all around the device, we have full screen with the camera lens is basically placed within it, so you do have this setup here. Now you're wondering, can you access that yellow button right there? You can't if it's full screen, but the cool thing is you can go ahead and swap the screen size right here. There's a little button at the bottom which you can tap and change the dimensions of it, or you can go into Multi-Star, which is the app you use to actually load things to your cover display in terms of applications, and that you can also change that there. That's the first thing about the cover display that it's a bit annoying, if you will, is that you need to use an app from the Galaxy Store to throw in your game apps or any other app you want to right there, which I was hoping by now would have changed in One UI 8. And I think that is a big bummer because there's so many things you can do with this, and this cover display is not as fluid if you want to actually add more things to it. But that's not what we're here for. We're here to actually game, and to do that, you want to open up the device into the much larger internal display. Now, this is a 6.9-inch display. It is lovely, 120 hertz refresh rate, and also feels smooth. The crease feels very less noticeable on this because that hinge is just much tighter in terms of the lock and feel, which is nice. But of course, as gamers, we're here to game, and we had to do a couple of things. Mind me, guys, my voice has been going because I've been talking too much for the last couple of days. But let's start off with our benchmarks. Looking at our benchmarks and looking at Geekbench, this processor is an Exynos 2500, not a Snapdragon 8 Elite, which you find on the Fold 7. So that is quite interesting to see here, with our single core scores at 1,548 and our multi-core scores at 7,006, which is far away from what we got on the Z Fold 7 or anything on a Snapdragon 8 Elite chipset. Now, when we go to GPU scores, we got a much more respectable GPU score at 18,416, which is closer in line, at least in terms of numbers, to what we have on Snapdragon, but still not as close. So with that benchmark in mind, we're going, what about the gaming performance? Can it actually game well? And that's what you're looking for as a gamer. So I'll start off with some of the bad. You're not going to get high level performance of this chipset, especially looking at those numbers. It's quite clear that some things just don't hit that high mark. But also, not every game fully supports it. So one of the games I do like to test is Grid Legend, and that is not supported by the chipset on this device. So it says it quite clearly there, and we have to move on. Then we move to Call of Duty Mobile, and that's a game that we can play on the cover display, play internally. Call of Duty Mobile, usually you get about 120 frames per second. It doesn't do 120 frames per second on this chipset. We do about 60 frames, which is still solid, but again, that's why we do Call of Duty as our benchmark, so we can see where it starts off. And then going to PubG Mobile, we can go to the max settings of PubG Mobile, which we also did on Call of Duty Mobile. And on PubG Mobile, we're getting about 90 frames per second. Again, on the Z Fold 7, we're doing 120 frames per second. Here it is 90. So that's something to pay attention. But again, much higher levels of gameplay and gaming performance. And then we move over to some other games. So Genshin Impact. Genshin Impact is one game where 60 frames per second is where we test heavy load. On this device at the highest settings, we start off at 60 frames per second and we kind of tail back down, and it averages around 45 frames per second throughout the gameplay session. And it does that pretty quickly. You'll notice that once you start gaming, it starts dropping out really quickly. And at this point, I did my first temperature check where We check the temperatures while gaming. We go to about 107, 108 degrees Fahrenheit, which is about 41 degrees Celsius. So higher temperatures here while gaming, and most of those temperatures are always around this section of the device, right around the camera ring or in front of the side of the screen. So this is where the CPU is located, and that's why those temperatures are higher there. Next off is a new game we added, which is Diablo Immortal. I know some of you said it's not that intense of a game, but with Diablo, I cannot maximize those settings on this. And I'm getting about 30 frames per second on Diablo. Still plays well, quite fluid, but there's a reason why we play some of these games. And finally, a game you guys asked for, Wuthering Waves. Was able to, of course, install it, look at the settings. We went for maximum performance, and to do that, it went on low settings. We're getting about 60 frames per second off the game. But this is a game where you can get the maximum FPS you want to, but you have to go down to low settings. Now, I almost forgot to mention a game that someone did ask me to play, which I also played as well, Delta Force. Now, Delta Force Mobile, the max setting I could get was standard, which is about 30 frames per second. That game can go up to 144 frames per second, but that was not the case on this device. And that is something you'll see, is that this device can actually game and do some really good big gaming performance for you, but you're not going to maximize that performance. That's something that's just standard with it. And in terms of temperatures, our temperatures hung around the 107 to 109 degrees Celsius. Now, what about controllers? As you can see, I was using the Backbone Pro controller here, and the Backbone Pro controller is a solid controller. I love the fact that with this controller, I can play connected via USB Type-C or Bluetooth, which you would need for Bluetooth connection to game on this cover display. Now, also the cool thing about this controller is that it works pretty well with a device like this at 6.9 inches. So that's great. So control support is there. Now, quickly, I want to give you guys an audio sample while gaming so you can just see the performance for yourself, and we'll take a listen.
Changing mag, cover me. Enemy down. Target down. Target down. You're open. Cool it.
The gorge? There's only a short walk to reach Jinzhou.
Honestly, the speaker sounded good. I think you're getting good performance in the speaker. I think the performance was really good overall. Now, the battery size on the device is 4,300 milliamps, just 100 milliamps less than the Z Fold 7. And my battery drain while gaming with this device from 100% down to around 75 with roughly about an hour, 20 minutes of gameplay was solid. Then again, this is my first time gaming on this device. It might change in the future, but it was pretty solid overall. Now, how do I view the Z Flip 7 as a gaming device? It's not. It's not built for that. The chipset isn't that. And I think it does a much better job than I expected in handling some games. But this is a device that is built more for the flip aesthetics. So you can use that camera in front the best way possible and not necessarily for gaming. You can still game though, but I wish that Samsung went with a Snapdragon 800 chipset in here, because I think I'll also get better battery performance and I'll also get better gaming performance. The one thing I want to add is also Samsung making native configuration of the curved display a thing in One UI 8, just because using an app like Good Luck is nice, but for the actual casual consumer, it becomes tedious to try to find a way to put the apps you want to on your cover display without you just going through third-party app hoops. I had to just point that out. But anyway, I hope you like this video, guys. I apologize for my voice. It is slowly dying. So I'm gonna try and just keep quiet for a while, rest it, and you enjoy this gaming video. If you have any questions in the comments, let me know. Otherwise, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and always enjoy entertainment. It is fun though. The device is fun to hold. And yes, that is a Dobby wallpaper. Oops, not that. Bye.